is the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast.
So do you want to talk about the Golden Crane?
Flies for Tarman Gaiden.
Will he ride alone?
Man.
Didn't I, I don't usually I tear up when I'm reading these chapters when I'm making notes, right? Because I'm very much bisecting them and reading them for like clues and context and not necessarily the emotion, right? Like that's something I've gotten in other reads. Definitely teared up at the end of this episode, this read as I was making my notes. I was like, oh yeah, no, this is fine. No, I'm not. Okay, I'm leaking.
Onions. There's onions.
Who's cutting?
Yeah, I so vividly remember the first time I listened to this on audiobook.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I remember exactly where on the land I was, like what piece of blackberry hedge I was cutting down. Like, I specifically remember just like stopping and leaning on my rake and just like crying, just like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. Like, I'm cheering alone in the woods, like it was a whole thing. Yeah, this is fantastic. I enjoy it very much, and I think we're gonna read a lot of it because it's just really good. I know a lot of times we're like, it's prose, go read it on your own time, but like this is a chapter we might need to make an exception for. There's some good stuff here.
This might be one of my favorite chapters. That like, and it's long, right? It's the two-part. Like, we start off with the after effects of the fight, and with Rand, and sort of the there's a lot of we can talk about there, but then we switch to Nyneave, her POV, and the whole negotiation with Lan that essentially starts the last battle, right? As we talked about in a previous episode.
Yeah, last episode, the battle kind of starts, and this episode, like last episode is the boulder getting pushed, and this episode is the boulder being like actually like starting to move, and then it's just it's just watching the boulder roll downhill from there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. This is chapter 20, the Golden Crane. Our symbol is the Nodding Ravens. I assume that's a reference to all the ravens in the beginning of this chapter feasting on the Trollocs and each other.
Yeah, we will be ranting about bird facts.
Okay, sounds good to me. The wind had died away as the rain diminished, but gray clouds still hid the sun. The fine drizzle was enough to dampen Rand's hair, however, and began soaking into his gold-embroidered black coat as he walked through the dead Trollocs. Logan had spun a shield of air so that the raindrops bounced from it, or apparently slid down nothing to cascade around him. But Rand refused to risk Lews Therin seizing Saidin again. The man had said he could wait until the last battle to die, but how far could you trust a madman on anything? "Madman?" Lews Therin whispered. "Am I any madder than you?" He cackled with wild laughter. Now and then, Nandira looked over her shoulder at Rand. A tall, sinewy woman, her graying hair hidden beneath her brown shufa. She led the maidens, those on this side of the dragon wall at least, but she had chosen to lead his bodyguard of maidens personally. Her green eyes, all he could see of her sun-dark face above her black veil, carried little expression. Yet he was sure she was worried over him, not protecting himself from the rain. Maidens noticed what seemed out of the ordinary. He hoped she would keep quiet. "You have to trust me," Lews Therin said. "Trust me, O light. I'm pleading with a voice in my head. I must be mad!" It's always fun to yell a little bit.
Lews! Yeah, no, Lews Therin is a real fun character in this chapter. He's very present.
He's also way more sane than Rand is, which is, we've had that flip, right? Where Rand is really the nuts one, and he's taking the last remnants of his sanity now and pushing it onto Lews Therin, right? Because Lews Therin used to be where he put all his anger and his hatred and the things he couldn't deal with.
Yeah, it's always hard for me to put a finger on when Rand himself really becomes insane, because he does put it on Lews Therin for a while, and he's still behaving in ways that are objectively sane-ish, and then it really just completely flips, and it's hard to put a finger on when.
My hands.
Until this podcast, because of how into it we're getting.
I put my finger on his hands, right? On his fingers, right? Like, that's when I think there's a flip, because all of a sudden Lews Therin is physically channeling. Rand is the voice in his head during the battle.
Rand is in control of the body.
Yes, a little bit.
But
right,
when
but not
he
the channeling.
moves his body in response to Lews Theron's thoughts, like there you can't go back from that. A line has been crossed. Yeah, I think so. And we're really seeing that in how Lews and Rand are interacting throughout this chapter. Robert Jordan is like, yeah, the relationship has changed permanently between these two pieces of this one character.
I think that's really an important part of the battle, right, that he went through, is that that's the whole thing about Death Gates, is they're Lews Theron channeling. This is not Rand channeling. There is this swap, at which point Rand has really lost himself. You know, it was this thing he's been fearing, right, forever and ever and ever, is what happens if Lews Theron takes over? What happens if Lews Theron seizes the one power before I do? You know, and he almost killed them all, right? He almost, recreated Dragonmount right there on the spot. So, he was right to fear that.
And in that fear, he gave Lews Theron the last of his sanity. To be like, how about you hold on to that? Because apparently you need it more than I do. I'll just live with all this trauma and pain and fear that Rand has accumulated in his literal life. I'll just deal with that with no sanity left. I'll just be insane because it's fine, I guess. Oh, Rand, baby.
And so, obviously Rand isn't channeling because he doesn't want to fight Lews Theron over the power. He's afraid for that to happen again. So you have, in a lot of ways, they've nerfed Rand a little bit, right? Like, most powerful channeler with the ter'angreal, sangreal, but he doesn't actually want to seize the power. He will do anything in his power to avoid seizing the power.
And on a whole nother level than, like, early books, when he's like, I won't do it again, and that was ridiculous. That's not going to happen. Like, this is different. Now he's an experienced channeler who is holding back because the costs are too great in a felt objective way, and he still has to do it sometimes. He just limits it in a way that early books Rand was very all or nothing. Like, later books Rand is learning that there are shades of gray.
You might say the early books are someone who is developing an addiction. The early books are someone in full-blown power addiction. Or the mid books. The mid books are, and then the later books are someone who's kind of like recovering. Right. This is him at rock bottom, right? This is him like,
he's screeching into rock bottom at this point.
Yeah, he's screeching into rock bottom, and then sort of after Veins of Gold, he's a recovering addict, right?
Yeah, he has his epiphany, and then it's all good.
Because power is addiction. I mean, there's definitely that is an implicit analogy that Jordan makes, right, over and over and over again.
So it's weird because Rand gets over his trauma, which is what's actually happening there, but like, he still uses the power. It's not like he stops using the power, though. When he does get the power removed from him at the end, when he switches to Morden's body and he can't channel, he heaves a sigh of relief. So maybe in a way, actually, that's true, because after Veins of Gold, he could be cut off at any time and it wouldn't matter, except for the fate of the world, but it wouldn't matter to him. Like, he'd be fine. It's just the part where the world needs him to be able to channel in order to, like, fix the whole, like, end of the world thing. But that actually makes a lot of sense.
We need you to do cocaine to save the world. It's kind of vital. I know you're an addict, but, yeah, here you go. Like, you have to imagine what kind of mental fortitude he has to overcome to be able to do that and then accept it being taken away at any time.
Yeah, I've seen that as a mechanic on side quest stories in a couple of stories. I'm thinking of a Star Trek Voyager episode. I was thinking of some other movie or something, but now it's escaping my mind. But like, it's definitely a thing that I've seen used as a side quest. I've never seen it be the main quest, but yeah, it's definitely an idea that you can play with creatively.
So they're going around basically finishing off all the dead Trollocs on the ground, making sure that none of them are a threat, none of them are just wounded, none of them are pretending to die. And a good number of them are still, dying.
Sure. Yeah, and here's where we get to the bird thing. I need to rant about bird facts for a quick second here.
Okay.
All right. So crows and ravens are presented in these books repeatedly as liking to hang out together and eating all this food. In nature, they really hate each other. They kind of have like a eternal blood feud that will never be resolved by Water Oath because they're not Aiel. And So that's just weird.
But then why do I throw down some like crackers and like 20 crows and ravens come flocking to come pick them up?
Are you sure that there's crows and ravens?
No, crows and or ravens. I'm not sure. It's one group or the other.
Exactly. One or the other. There you go. And probably it's crows. If you're not sure, then it's crows, because ravens are really, really, really big.
Right.
The other thing is, because the good explanation for why it's happening is just it's a charnel house and they don't care. So they're all eating together because there's just lots of food. Fine. Okay. I can buy that. But none went near any dead Murdrel, though, as they shunned the Trollocs too near a Murdrel. And they shunned Trollocs too near a Murdrel. That indicated nothing beyond caution. Very likely the Murdrel smelled wrong to the birds. All right. Sit down, everyone. Birds do not have a sense of smell, with a couple of exceptions, which includes vultures, because vultures are awesome and have to be exceptional in all kinds of ways. I love vultures. I know vulture facts. Ask me for vulture facts. But one of the things about vultures is they're one of the only kinds of birds that can smell. Crows and ravens do not have a sense of smell. Birds in general do not have a sense of smell. Birds do not smell.
Source? Because, like, I feel like, okay, having grown up with birds, they all have nostrils. I've seen them sort of flare them. Like, I've seen them sniff and take in air through their nostrils, right? Parrots, at least. And I kind of believe you, but at the same time, that seems outlandish to me that they have no sense of smell whatsoever. It seems like they might have, like, a reduced sense of smell, or like a...
Thank you, Pants, in chat for providing a random Google result. Really?
Today, researchers have proven that many species do have a sense of smell, and for some it plays a huge role in their behavior.
Well, that's frustrating. Shut up, Super Skylake.
I gotta say, looking through this, it's like, it's probably not their primary sense, right? It's not like, they're sniffing out, prey and stuff like that. They're mostly relying on their hearing, right? But hearing and eyes, they have really, really, really good vision and really good hearing for the most part. That's why they sing to each other and are all colorful. But
I am being owned by facts right now.
Mm-hmm. Facts and let me say, personal experience growing up with birds, right? Like, I've seen them smell shit.
All right. Well, I can tell you that the source of this myth is me overextending how incredible a vulture's sense of smell is, because they do have like shark levels of sensitivity. And
right.
Vast, like they don't hunt by eye or by ear, they hunt by nose.
So it seems ridiculous that they evolved that in a void, right? Sorry.
Yeah, so it is the thing that they have maxed out in a way that most birds have not. And the myth, I can't speak for everyone, but the myth for me comes from just overextending that fact. I'm going to have to go yell at someone in my life who planted that idea in my head.
It is true they can't taste spicy things, though. They don't, the capsaicin doesn't affect them. So they will eat like spicy peppers, like they're green peppers, and they don't give a shit. So I've seen that. It's also, let me tell you something, very dangerous to let a bird touch, basically lick your fingers after it's been eating spicy things and then touch your eyes. I can tell you that from experience too.
Oh.
Yeah, because they don't react like it's spicy, and then it's really fucking hot.
I appreciate you making me not the only person who's been wrong in this moment. Thank you for sharing the wrongness with me.
By the way, have you ever felt a bird's tongue?
I have a couple of times.
It's a fascinating texture. Yeah.
I've had chicken tongue experiences. Yeah. Yeah. Very, not at all like a cat or a dog.
No.
or a cow. Very, very different.
Warm and soft and dry.
Yeah. Dry and rough in a way that's, cat tongues are pretty rough, but like, yeah, they're just so, dry. It's like, how is that a tongue? But they have a whole different means of eating.
Yeah, they put things in their crop and it grinds it all down before it even goes in their stomach. They essentially have a second mouth.
Yeah, they eat rocks. They eat rocks and put it in their throat, and then their throat chews the food for them with the rocks. And then every now and then they add more rocks because the rocks got worn down. It's wild. At least that's how chickens work. Most birds, I guess. But it's...
Aradia's flummoxed. She's like, I was wrong. Wait, I was wrong? I don't know how do I move forward from this point?
I've been saying this fact for a long time.
Yeah.
Because my infatuation with vultures goes back for a while.
Mm-hmm. I'm just saying, every once in a while, source. Because that sounds like an urban myth to me.
Well, it's more like a wildlife myth.
Wildlife myth, yeah, sure.
It's not urban. Well, I guess, I don't know. Only urban idiots like myself would fucking... No, I'm not going to...
I mean, birds are certainly urban. There's a lot of pigeons and crows and ravens and domestic parrots that end up in the wild.
But the question is, do I edit out all of that?
No way. No. I need a win every once in a while.
Fuck. I'm going to be mad about that for a minute.
Uh-huh. But we'll go with ravens and crows don't hang out. That's wrong. And it's the Dark One's influence.
I'm pouting.
So, I'm going to move on. They are burning the bodies of the Trollocs, maybe 100,000 Trollocs. Like, that is way more, like, that's so many Trollocs in one-off battle, right? If I have a complaint about Brandon Sanderson's last battle, it's too small. The numbers are too small. There are Jordan hits at giant armies out there in the millions.
Yeah, I find 100,000 Trollocs being taken down by a dozen Aes Sedai and Ashaman for a one-off battle to just feel off. That just feels like the wrong number, given how the actual last battle works. Like, yeah, either the last battle's too small, or this attack was too big.
Right.
Like, one or the other. Like, it can't be neither.
Because with 30 people taking out 100,000 Trollocs, they're taking out 3,000 Trollocs each, right? That just seems...
Yeah, that's ridiculous. That's so OP compared to the early books. Like, no. Just no. The dog in your background is agreeing with me. This is absurd.
Yeah. Once again, on Tuesdays, we babysit Nessa. But that's actually Timber. Timber! Because Nessa went to work with Never. Yeah. 33,000 apiece.
Yeah, is it 33,000 in an hour? Like, no, that's not... That feels like a typo. Someone slipped and added too many zeros.
Having that many people move through a space in that amount of time, I don't think is possible.
Right.
So yeah, the number just feels off. That's all. I'm like, maybe 100,000. Are you exaggerating a little bit? Is it maybe more like 10,000?
10,000 would mean still 300 a piece, which seems,
that seems
absurd. But
yeah.
like with linking, with Sangreal, okay, fine, maybe. But like you're making me really raise my eyebrows if you're claiming that they each took down 300 in the course of all that. Like, I mean, I guess Rand took out a lot because he's Rand.
Yeah.
But like, still,
he was throwing grenades and stuff like that, basically. Yeah.
100,000, just like he could only cover so much of the house's periphery because of just like geometry. So I feel like someone threw down too many zeros and then uncritically printed it, even though it's written out in words. Like it's too many. I'm sorry, it's just too many.
And I'm just going to give it with like, hey, he's just bad at estimating big numbers because he only lived with like 50 people.
40 days and 40
right?
nights.
Like,
okay.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, one of those. Maybe it's 100,000. Rand, it's like 10,000 max. Come on, man. Like, count that a little better.
Yeah.
Maybe there's 100,000 pieces.
I mean, valid. If every Trolloc was divided 5 ways.
So we get the assumption that they came from the Waygate outside Infesting Shanghai, right? Mm-hmm. So, okay. Was I wrong? I thought that Loyal went out with a channeler and closed a bunch of gateways.
A bunch of Waygates.
Waygates, sorry.
Yeah, I feel like taking Loyal off the board with a random Ashamon for a whole bunch was turned into a big nothing burger by then being like, and then we need another dude to go do that even more.
Right. Because he says how many he managed to close. And I do remember him saying he didn't close the one out of settings Shanghai because he didn't want to go there, right? Because he was afraid he was going to get, like, you know... So, like, maybe that's, like, the one he didn't close. And he did mention that. But, like, did he close all the rest? And he just needs Elder Hammond to go close this one?
There's a few they didn't get to.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like that plot got very muddled and lost in the churn.
It did. Because we lost Loyal for a couple of books to that. And then he just came back and was like, done. And then it was like, wait, what exactly did you do?
Right, and then they didn't do the one in Camelin that they absolutely knew about, and, like, that causes, you know, problems down the line.
Also Verin and her letters.
Like, they knew it was there. They knew
Right.
exactly where it was. It's just ridiculous. And they did close them. I mean, Rand set guards on some of them, but the whole thing with Loyal and Carlton going out was about closing them.
Right. It was you take the keys out. Right, like, and Rand could never do that because Mashadar would be there waiting for him. Right. Masheen Shin, would be there waiting for him. But yeah, the idea is that you go inside, you take the inner key, take the outer key, throw them away.
Or put them in a neatly labeled bag for potential reuse later, because it is Loyal we're talking about. I don't think he'd throw them away. I think he put them into a specimen bag with little labels in like whiteout on the bottom, like rock specimens.
Hide them away deep in the dungeon.
Mm-hmm. And then some adventurer can find them on, like, you know, their dungeon crawl, like, at some point in the 4th age, and it'll be great.
Icon is saying they closed the ones that were far from civilization and guarded the others. So the ones under Camelin were guarded, right? The ones near Steading Shanghai maybe got guarded, but the rest of them got closed off.
Well, guards clearly was insufficient for stopping this tide of Trollocs from coming through.
Right. What you need is a guard with some fireworks stuffed in the edge so you can just blow the place.
Basically.
Bury it under a ton of rock.
Yeah.
Neither Trollocs nor Murdral would enter a steading unless driven. I think that was an interesting little bit. I don't know if we ever get that before. Yeah, because we know they take refuge in a steading.
Yeah, that's why Perrin and Egwene and Elias take refuge in that one steading, the abandoned steading, is because Trollocs and other dark things won't go there. There's a bit here about Olivia and how she is really still mostly just a weapon, and Rand tried to make the sisters sworn to him teach the Shanshan woman more about the power, but to their minds that had nothing to do with their oaths of fealty. That comes up a couple of times in this chapter, is how they don't accept her. He really wants them to accept her. He really, really wants them to take her in and help her be a full person and learn the full use of her power so that she can help him die, whatever that means.
Whatever that means, yeah. Well, and that all goes back to he has promised Lewis Theron, he has promised himself that he can die, that he can give up this burden, and that what was an uncertainty now is a certainty, right? Because he has this prophecy from Min never gets anything wrong. Therefore, he knows he will die. But he also has the prophecy to live you must die from the snakes and the foxes. So I think he's putting things together, and, like, yes, he is looking at Olivia with hope. It's hope that he can die and give up his burden, but it's also hope that he can continue to live, right? If you look at the prophecies together, she will help me die, I must die, but to live, I must die. And so, yeah, I think that there's a certain amount of real desperation to have Olivia learn, because he wants to live. He wants to have a life after the last battle, even if he's not willing to admit that to himself.
Right. Part of him is still very much acknowledging that with how much he cares about keeping Olivia close and giving her the best education and giving her acceptance. Yeah.
And I gotta say, it's all about how he believes she will help him die because of the prophecy. It has nothing to do with how she actually helps him, because all she does is pack him some fucking clothes, right? Like, it's the most useless goddamn prophecy out there, except for the fact that it tells Rand that he will, in fact, die. Right? Like, it's I don't know. It's such a weird. I don't know if Sanderson used it weird or Jordan, but Jordan did say he wanted to have prophecies about things that were pretty unimportant, right? Like he wanted to have prophecies that were about like boring everyday stuff, and so like yeah, she'll help you. She'll pack you a bag. Prophecy.
You can't hear my eyes rolling.
Oh, I can see them.
But
you know.
I am.
No, I agree. I think it was poorly handled. I would have loved to see her.
I don't even see Rand and Olivia interacting at that point. Like, she just does it mysteriously for reason. We never see him give her those orders. We never see her interact with the Moradin body. We never see her acquiring the stuff. He just looks at it and goes, ah, yes, Olivia performed according to those actions that were not on screen in the slightest of me telling her things. Like, what? Oh, it's nothing. It's a nothing burger.
Question, can you have a circle with 2 men and 1 woman? Is that a possible channeling circle? I thought not. I thought you needed 2 women and 2 men.
You can do that. You can do that. 2 men can't make a link together, but if you bring a
2
woman into it, then you can.
So that would have been interesting, is to put Olivia as sort of a link between the 2 of them, that they had their own link, but they also needed like to be in a circle together, and if she'd been the one to help them do that, then that would have like completed the circle, which would let him transition in bodies, right?
Yeah. But I mean, I would be happy with the just doing a bit of property theft and hooking me up with like my, getaway package alternate identity. That would be fine if we had ever seen Rand tell her that that's what he wanted, or seen her have a cool moment of getting it together, or seen her realize that the Moradin body was leaving and knowing that it was Rand because she recognized the belt buckle or something. But we got absolutely fuck all. We got one little thought inside his head, and that was the conclusion. It was so unsatisfying. Even though, yeah, like I like the idea of a mundane prophecy, but like you gotta give me like an Olivia POV where she almost gets caught and then makes it happen anyway, or something, Because I mean, yeah, it's important that he have a getaway bag so that way he doesn't have to talk to anyone. Like that's important, but like, can we see her being told that that's what her mission is, to help him die? Can we see any acknowledgement of that information getting to her ever? But no.
Yeah, she seems like one of those setups that doesn't have a lot of payoff. Because there's a lot leading into her, right? Like getting her, capturing her conversion, her killing some folks, her being convinced to help Rand, then this prophecy that and then you get, oh, she packs him a bag. Like that's the with money.
And not even in a way where she gets to have a cool moment at all.
Right. Yeah, it's you can't have everything pay off, but this is definitely one of those payoffs that I thought was bad.
No, because it makes it's so good here when he's like trying to make sure that she learns stuff and that she gets acceptance. It's like, all right, this is going to build to something more than a wet fart.
Right.
And then it, yeah. So expect us to continue ranting about that as we get through the books.
Also, she's incredibly powerful as a channeler. I wanted to see something with that. Like, she's supposedly like the most powerful channeler, right? In the series. In raw power. Most powerful female channeler. That's a giant Chekhov's gun, right? That's a giant gun up on the wall that never got used.
Yeah.
Never got used.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Little bitter about that. Yeah. Okay, so Rand's head. Let's get into Rand's head a little bit. He's thinking about the blue-eyed man in his head.
Right after he thinks about Ashamael.
Which, same person. It's Moradin reincarnated. That body gets around, man. That's like, Rand's like the 3rd person to be in that sucker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's giving me some Altered Carbon vibes.
It really is, yeah. And then Lewis Theron says, you should have killed them. That's his usual response to Ashaman. The source is clean now, fool, Rand thought. Yes, Lewis Theron replied. But are they? Am I? Right? So there's this... What he's saying basically is, yes, the source is cleansed, but the people who started channeling before the source was cleansed are still tainted. And they can still go insane. Like, Rand is still tainted. That has not stopped. Now, he'll stop getting worse, right? So, at this point, we can pretty much say Rand is as bad as he's ever going to get in terms of the taint on his mind. Now, he may fall to it.
He may experience more trauma that gives him more darkness in another way. But yeah, he's gotten the maximum amount of exposure to that corrosive damage to his mind. That is done. But yeah, those black spiky things that Nyneave sees, those are in his brain and they have not gone away. They won't go away until he gets all zen and like reverse, coats them with magic or whatever.
And I think the answer we get is we never really get to find out if the damage continues to spread over time.
Yeah, it's hard to say. Is it progressive? Is it static? Yeah, with what's just going on in the world, with all the things that are happening to them, really hard to say.
And not enough time passes between the cleansing and the end of the series. And then Nyneave starts healing people, right? So we assume that we never really get a long-term test about anybody who, But yeah, the hospital for the men who channeled for that brief period of time between when they died and when the source was cleansed. Like, that shouldn't be that hard to cleanse, like the 1,000 people, right?
Yeah, for sure. And then it'll be fine for people who started channeling the day after the source was cleansed. It'll be fine for them.
Right. And then the next thing I have is Verin's letter comes in.
Yeah, the messenger, old Ethan. This guy does a lot of work in these scenes, just bringing various people and notes into the scene and out of the scene. He runs around a lot. Yeah, and he's got this parasol from the Sea Folk. It's like there's a whole like vignette of a story that RJ just hints at and then moves on. It's great. But yeah, he shows up and is like, Verin told me to give you this right away. Rand's like, you could have waited till later. He's like, but the Aes Sedai said to give it to you right away.
Right.
So I'm doing that. Rand's like, fine, but I'm not going to read it right away. I'm going to do this whole other thing first and then read it later.
Which, there's nothing super urgent in that letter, unlike Verin's letter for Matt, right? Like, there's nothing in this one that, like, he, like, be cautious, basically trust Codswain. Okay, cool.
I think that she probably told him to deliver it right away so that he would leave the room and let her gateway out. I bet that's what, which means, if that's the case, that means that she stayed for the fight and didn't leave before the fight. She leaves the room before the fight starts. But if she gave that note to Ethan and then immediately bounced after that and he promptly walked out into the rain, that means that she didn't leave until after the fight was over.
Agreed. Yeah, I think she was something about the fight means she had to leave. Or...
Well, she said she had done all that she needed to do and left the room before the fight started. But, like, if she knew it was coming, then yeah, she's like, all right, Tomas, pack your bags, prepare for a battle. We're going to do a quick little battle, and then we're out. Just a tiny battle where you have to kill 100 Trollocs.
I honestly don't think the warders did any fighting.
I would figure not, since they didn't get to the manor house. It said explicitly that a few bodies made it just to the foundations. So, yeah, the warders actually would have just been hanging out, waiting for the last extreme.
Stress, yeah. To get the few that may have made it through, right? Then maybe you have some warders to stop them. But there is one place they got into, and that was a barn.
Yes.
And they killed, 19 Saldeans?
Well, no, they killed 19 in total, and they've all been brought to this barn. They weren't all killed in the barn, but the bodies have all been brought here.
Oh, I thought they were all okay.
Yeah, they made this the morgue because so many of them did die here, and it's a damaged building, so they decided to bring all the others who died in here as well. And yeah, these are the fires that Rand had to direct Logain to put out, right? He's like, Logain, put the fires out because I have a madman in my head who's keeping me from dealing with the fires. This is the building that was on fire, and these are some of the victims of that encounter specifically.
And so we have flies appearing out of nowhere, all over the bodies, suddenly, which reminds me a little bit of Rand and being captured in a trap by Fane. Remember? In Great Hunt.
Yeah, absolutely. I always think of that here. It gives me strong Fane vibes. Yeah.
And we concluded that was definitely Fane and not a bubble of evil, right?
Oh, yeah. I think Fane even says something at some point about that. That yeah, no, we definitely concluded collectively. I wasn't even part of the podcast at the time, but yes, we, speaking for all of us collectively, decided that yeah, that was a Fane thing, and this feels more like a bubble of evil. But I'm wondering if Fane isn't emanating his own bubbles of evil as he works his way through the world.
Where is Fane right now?
Where is Fane? Where in the world is Pattern Fane?
Seriously, like, do you know?
I don't. I don't.
Yeah, let's see if we can do some research really quick. Wow, we really don't hear from him between Winter's Heart right before the cleansing. Right, remember the battle at Verin's hometown, and Codswain's hometown, Farmatting? So,
yeah.
The next time we see him is Towers of Midnight, when he's, like, gathering his Trollocs towards the last battle.
Well, that's garbage.
So, he really could be anywhere. He is really not. Let's see if there's any reference in Knife of Dreams. No. He is not in
Dislike.
Path of Daggers. He's not in Knife of Dreams. He's not in Gathering Storm. I didn't realize how long Fane... Like, I think we did say that, like, this is pretty much the last time we see Fane until the last battle. So he could be anywhere doing anything.
Well, I'm going to choose to believe that he's here.
Yeah, okay. Then he followed Rand here.
Yeah, but then he didn't do anything. Then he left and did something else. No, that makes no sense. It makes no sense at all. But this does feel supernatural. This is more flies than there should be.
Yeah, and the fact that they appeared, they weren't there. He stepped out and turned around, and they appeared. Right, like it's clearly magical bubble of evil. The pattern's weakening. Right, like what my assumption is, like, in an alternate world, the flies gathered, and then there was some sort of world swap, and the flies appeared from another world into this one. Right, because the pattern's weakening between all the parallel worlds. We see that in the last battle, where you see all the different fighters appearing, right? And sort of the way Teleron Riyadh's merging. These are different dimensions.
Yeah. Oh, that reminds me. I've been listening ahead in the book. I've been trying to listen ahead in the book. And when Egwene's in the tower, she gets told that the tower has been shifting around for a while.
Okay.
So when the big times that she experiences it with, like, the Brown Aja accepted swap, that happens after she arrives, but the shifting started before. That's not the first time the shifting happened. It just kind of phased in, one could assume, at roughly the same time as Elaine's palace started shifting.
Camelin, right.
So I remember us debating that, and when I listened to this other chapter that's a little bit ahead of us, it was just like, there it is. There's the confirmation.
Long story short, the pattern is falling apart. Reality is not working. We're getting, bubbles of evil, space shifting, time shifting, things teleporting in from other dimensions, right? Like, you just can't be sure that things are going to stay at all stable.
Yeah, at all.
So Olivia drives all the flies away, which is interesting because the ability to control flies or bugs in general is a secret of the blue Aja.
But Cadswain says, so you watch, which makes me think that she's referring to herself.
Right. And of course Codswain would
agreeing.
know. Right. Yeah, but who says, of course she knows everybody else's weaves, right? Codswain isn't going to be restricted to green weaves only. She's going to learn all the other Ajas. She's been around. She's blackmailed. She learns all the secrets, including all the other Ajas' weaves.
I mean, at least the ones that are the lowest security, like how to make bugs come and go, because it's just not that hard to guard, or people just don't guard it that hard.
Right, and it's one of those things that, like, we have learned that the most powerful channelers, Codswain, Olivia, Nyneave, Elaine, they can see someone channeling Rand doing something once, and they can pretty much reproduce it. Right? So all Codswain has to do is see someone use the bug weave once. She can reproduce it. Same thing with Olivia. She just sees Codswain use it once, and that's where she's learning. That's how she is learning, right? Is because she has that incredibly elevated power, which seems to increase your ability to learn how to channel.
Unfair advantage.
It really is. It's interesting that, like, yes, people can be less powerful and more skilled, but it does seem that the more powerful you are, the easier it is to learn how to channel.
Yeah. There's also another Luce Theron section where Rand says, "I'm not you." And then Luce Theron is like, "If you're not me, then who are you?
Uh-huh.
Which is just like, yeah, the spiral is tightening to the point of explosion at this point.
Because they are the same person. It is Rand is creating the voice in his head.
Yeah, it's really, the navel gazing has hit peak levels. The Ouroboros has almost eaten its way back to its own head. Like, shit's getting weird with these guys.
Some more stuff between Min and Olivia. Nothing really there. Just obviously Min doesn't like her because she doesn't want Rand to die. But I wish Rand would be like, I don't know if Min knows the prophecy that to live he must die.
I don't think she does. I do think that that's a mistake on Rand's part. I think he should explain that to her and to Nyneave.
Especially since she's doing all the research.
Right? Because Nyneave and Min get in the way of Olivia getting her acceptance and her education with the other Aes Sedai, because they are both women who are respected by and close to Rand. So if they're not welcoming Olivia in, it's a lot easier for the others to continue to not welcome her in too. And the only reason they're doing that is because Rand isn't sharing the full prophetic information he has about how she fits into it, only part of it. And that's just like, in for a penny, in for a pound, my dude.
Wheel of Time if people communicated. Much shorter.
I know. Then our podcast would already be over. We wouldn't be closing in on 500. Like, I know.
Min, of course, questions herself because of the whole Moraine prophecy, because she knows, right, which I believe the prophecy is, in order to succeed, you need Moraine, essentially. And so she, I must be wrong about that because Moraine's dead, and there's no way that, we're already condemned to lose because we lost Moraine. Right. We're not going to give into that, right? But, of course, as we all know, Moraine's still alive, and I think we just found out, right? We just read the letter.
Yeah, not that long ago. Yeah.
Not that long ago. So even in book, right, without any spoilers, you can be laughing at this and be like, no, man, you're right. She's coming back.
Exactly.
Why doesn't Rand tell them? Because he's a terrible communicator, and that's just part of the series. He has secrets on secrets, and he's learned to be Aes Sedai and not tell anyone they don't absolutely need to know, in his opinion, which ruins so many people's plans.
Yeah, basically that.
Lews Therin obviously is like, you promised we could die, right? You can't let Min's vision be wrong.
Yeah, Lews Therin is not pleased, which tells me something about Rand, right? That part of Rand really does want to die, right? For all that part of him wants to live and is trying to help Olivia out and, wants to make that part of the prophecy work. A very big part of him just wants to die, just wants this to be over. He is in so much pain and has suffered so much trauma and is under so much stress that a big part of him is just over it completely. And him and, Lews Therin has been on that beat for a while, So he is really taking on that aspect of what he's been giving to Lews Therin. It's finally seeping back through into him also.
Yeah, and there's also that, if you've been told repeatedly you will die, you must die, and it's going to happen any time now, and you keep getting, hyped up for it. Eventually you're like, okay, can we just get this over with?
Right.
I've said my goodbyes.
Right.
I've given away my gifts. I'm ready to just, I've spent all my money.
Right,
or whatever.
Yeah.
I'm ready to die. Let's get this over with. I'm not, I'm just suffering. And we live in one of the states that has a right to die clause in it, right? Oregon is one of the few places where, if we by law have a right to die at certain points rather than suffer.
Yeah, death with dignity. It's a thing. It's fraught and complicated, and yes, we live in one of the only states that has it.
And one of the many reasons that my parents had talked about retiring here their whole lives.
Mm-hmm.
They're doctors, right? They
Sure.
Ear doctors, but they exist in a hospital and they see
Yeah.
people and they understand that a lot of care and effort and suffering is spent in the last few weeks to few months of someone's life just to keep them alive for a little bit longer. And it's not worth it for the pain. It's not worth it for the money. And they want to be able to say no to that kind of treatment.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a whole giant conversation that we do not have time to get into here. But it is, yes, I am familiar with the contours of that general discussion. It's a whole thing.
Whereas some people find it, absolutely unforgivable.
Yeah, well, those people are trying to impose their worldview on others in so many ways that I just really don't care what they think, broadly.
Right. No, and it's someone, I'll try and be non-specific, but, a friend of a friend, a little bit older, 60s, found out she's got late-stage cancer and has chosen not to fight it. And it's just one of those things where, like, fuck, you got to respect that. But at the same time, it's like, but why? She doesn't want to she's like, I don't want to suffer. I don't want to put in the effort. And it's like.
Yeah, no, my dad works in the field of medical journalism, not even journalism, but like the articles written by doctors for doctors in journals that only circulate amongst doctors. He's an editor in that world, specifically in oncology. And he just has a writing degree, right? That's how he came into it. But he's learned a lot about oncology because most of the stuff he edits has to do with late stage cancer treatment and like the drugs that are developed for that. And so a lot of what he studies in order to be able to keep up with the work that he does is about how people are dying of cancer. And he's just like, yeah, I don't know that 5 months of going through all these side effects would be worth taking this drug at like thousands of dollars a dose. Like that just like, yeah, technically it's a 1 month longer than the last drug trial, but like doesn't seem worth it if you're going through the cancer itself. Like, it's the world of people choosing how to extend their lives through cancer specifically is something I've learned wild amounts about through my dad's work, kind of just looking in through the porthole of like, these doctors can't write sentences to save their lives, even if they know how to do drug trials.
Well, and the reality is, cancer is the longer you live, the more likely you are to get cancer, right? Like, it's just...
At a certain point, you're lucky to live long enough to get cancer, right? You
made
it to the point that cancer is what's taking you down. Yeah, it's fucked up. It's really fucked up. I still need to read The Emperor of All Maladies. I've heard it's very good.
And I'm always blown away by the fact that, like, if you're not killed if you survive to adulthood, right, and aren't killed in a car accident, you'll most likely have a heart attack, and if that doesn't happen, cancer will get to you eventually.
Pretty wild.
And, like, that's pretty much how you're going to die. Like, that's, like, one of those three ways. All the other accidents and mistakes and weird freak things that happen that kill people almost don't add up to a fraction of those other three things added together.
Yeah, car accidents, heart disease, and cancer. Yeah, which like are very big bins. To be fair, these are very big bins, but still. Yeah. So yeah, thinking ahead of time about how you want to handle that makes sense. And yeah, choosing to live in a place with death with dignity laws is unfortunately logical. I said we don't have time for this discussion, and we don't, which is why we're getting back to the book.
But it is relevant in terms of Rand, right? We're talking about Rand. This person is suffering from an addiction, a disease. How the taint is a disease, the power is an addiction. He's suffering in pain constantly. His side is this unhealable wound. He's lost his sight. He's lost, and he's burdened with an incredible responsibility and an incredible guilt.
Yeah, to say nothing of all of the trauma he's experienced with things like the box and Colavir killing herself and like so on and so forth. Like the little girl that he's got so much literal, just normal war trauma that's not magical, but is still very present.
Yeah, and then the PTSD, right, that he has to be suffering, and how many people, we know the rates of suicide are extremely high among people who are suffering PTSD.
Yeah, he's going through a lot, and he is not allowed to exit. He's not allowed to have death with dignity. He has to keep living in order to get to the last battle and then die however that works out. He doesn't get any agency over the thing that he both dreads and wants, and that has been, creeping towards him this whole time. Like, it's very complicated. He's really traumatized and not able to appreciate how complicated it is to a certain extent, like he's just enduring it, but we can look back and dissect it and be like, dude, that is a lot. Even Jesus is impressed.
He's living the duty is heavier than a mountain, death is lighter than the feather. He wants that release of death, but the duty is weighing him down, and he can't let go of that burden yet.
Yeah, because the world will end permanently if he does.
Right.
Like, it's...
Right.
I'm glad that he's got the willingness to suffer through it, but, like, that's a lot of pressure to be like, you get to yearn for death. That's the best you get to yearn for because you literally can't have it now. It's...
And there's also something interesting to be said about what is he doing with his time, right? Because he only has a little bit of time left. And I feel like after Veins of Gold, he is like, hey, let's win this thing. Let's everybody support each other. Let's have a good time. Now he's like, fucking sucks. I'm going to fucking die. God damn it. I can't fuck. God damn it. And he's wasting his time. He's wasting the time he has left because he's very bitter about it, you know?
Well, according to Matt's visions, he's getting laid a lot.
Well, I wouldn't say he's okay. Fair enough. He's not wasting it.
Him and Min are like getting busy, and I don't know why she's not getting knocked up.
Heartleaf tea.
Is she taking the Heartleaf tea? Because later she thinks about how she doesn't know if she's going to have his babies, and I'm like, so that means you weren't taking contraception this whole time? Question?
Maybe, I don't know. Yeah, it's possible that Min is not as fertile as, some of his other wives.
More non-binary PCOS representation.
Right. Would you like to read Verin's letter?
Yeah, let's get to Verin's letter. And yes, I definitely would love to read it because it's Verin. As I said, I have done what I can do here. I believe that I can fulfill my oath to you better elsewhere. So I have taken Tomas and gone to be about it. There are many ways to serve you, after all, and many needs. I am convinced that you can trust Cadsuane, and you certainly should heed her advice, but be wary of other sisters, including those who have sworn fealty to you. Such an oath means nothing to a black sister, and
like
even
me.
Those who walk in the light may interpret it in ways you would disapprove of. You already know that few see that oath as invoking absolute obedience in all things. Some may find other holes. So whether or not you follow Cadsuane's advice, and I repeat that you should, follow mine. Be very wary. Verin. Yeah, she's referencing herself and Elsa. She doesn't necessarily know that she's referencing Elsa. She probably knows that she's referencing Elsa.
She knows who Elsa is.
Yeah.
Of course she knows who Elsa is. We know that Verin knows who all the Dark Friends are.
Yeah, she knows who Elsa is. And she mind whammied Elsa also. That's why, and that's part of why she says, even those who swore fealty to you, because she's like, I'm the reason they all swore fealty to you. They didn't swear fealty for the reasons you think. I did that. You can't trust them just because I fucked with them. That's not good enough.
They're going to find reasons around the compulsion to do what they want.
Right. Even the ones who I didn't compulse are doing that. Definitely the ones that I screwed with are doing that. Verin knows.
And Verin can't say anything because she's sworn to the Dark One until the hour of her death.
It is not the hour of her death yet. She can't break the oath that far. But she can say, trust Cadsuane above everyone except me, which is the next best thing, because she knows Cadsuane isn't a dark friend. And so her advice will actually serve the light.
Which I think is why she does that. I mean, obviously they've formed an alliance, the whole, teach him tears, teach him to love again, right? That Verin was part of that. With
No, that's with Soraleah.
And Soraleah. But I thought all three of them were in on that.
Nah, Verin's not in on that.
Oh.
She's not in that discussion.
Okay.
But she's on that mission. She knows those
Right.
prophecies. She knows
Right.
what needs to happen at this point. She's aiming at the same goal as Cadsuane and Soraleah.
But yeah, I like how Rand points out, yep, she also didn't point out where she was going or what she was doing. She's just off. And we later find out she's off basically to give the book to Egwene.
Right. First, she gets sidetracked looking for Matt and Perrin by Taviran, and then she goes to Egwene.
Right. But she's on her way to Egwene, right?
Yes, that is where she's going. That is what she's gone to be about, is doing something more important than helping determine if Cadsuane is Black Aja. Now she's off to decapitate the actual Black Aja she does know about.
I think that's how she's saying, is I can fulfill my oath to you by decapitating the Black Aja, right? That's really how I'm going to serve you.
Right, she's determined that the advisors that Rand is most likely to listen to are both good on the side of light people. And now that she's done that, the best thing she can do is remove the Black Aja from the board entirely.
A woman of many masks, which I just love that, Verin's masking hard.
Cadsuane doesn't know how right she is, but also she knows how right she is because that comment is like an n-dimensional, ever-expanding, like, it's true no matter how far I know the truth. But yeah, I like that Rand shares it with Cadsuane. It is a sign that, like, he does truly take her advice when he wants it, which is very rarely, but he will take it when he wants it.
Oh, he shares the letter. Yes. Yeah. Verin reads it. And of course, Cadsuane's like, yeah, trust me. Like, yes, I agree with her that you should trust me. But, like, she doesn't want to say that out loud because then it just kind of sounds like conspiracy.
Yeah. Yeah, and Ava in chat, if she's not going to Egwene directly, she is going to get yoinked to go deal with Matt through Verin, but Egwene is where she's aiming.
Right. Her plan was not to get yoinked over by Verin, right? She's like, I tried to go here and I got sidetracked, and I tried to go there and I got sidetracked, and these gateways kept messing with me, and like, yeah, she tells the whole story about how she's trying to get to Tarvalin, and Matt and Perrin just yank her. Well, she doesn't know which one.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, she finds Matt first, but she's looking for either.
Right. Because she knows she's being yanked by Verin. She knows it's not Rand because she left him easily.
Yeah.
So she's like, all right, well, that leaves two.
All right, so the Ogier come in. And Rand is like, I'm so sorry I can't come to your wedding. I'm sure it's going to be a big whole thing. And Loyal interrupts, like, I just interrupted you. And is like, oh, no, we're married already. We're done. Because Ogier have a weirdly rapid sense of ceremony.
Well, I think it has more to do with the fact that they were chasing him for such a long time. His mother was like, I'm not waiting. I don't care. Like, we are not gonna risk. We've got everybody here together in one room. You're getting married right now because otherwise I don't know if it'll ever happen. We've been chasing you for years.
Literally.
Yeah. And then, of course, and obviously, like, the stump is happening. The last battle is coming, right? They are kind of aware of the urgency of what's going on.
Yeah, and they, like, kind of try to hide it from Rand that Loyal's going to speak at the stump. But I think it's more than that. Rand thinks it's just that Loyal's going to speak at the stump. I think they're trying to hide the fact that the Ogier might not be there for the last battle.
Exactly.
That's what they're afraid that Rand might find out. They're like, we're going to try to make that not happen. But, like, we need you to not know that that is an option. That would be bad for your mental health.
And once again, I have to wonder, would the Sean Chan Ogier disappear if the Book of Translation was opened?
Would they? Oh, that's an interesting question.
Are they? Because they're not as tied to the steading.
Yeah, I mean, they wouldn't be on the steading when it happened, so...
Would you have to be on the steading?
I assume so. I mean, you can be left behind by the away ship on an alien planet.
Oh, so you think the steading are the spaceships, right? Like, so you can't, like... It's not like everybody disappears.
Kind of like the discs when you go through a gateway or when you do skimming. That's kind of how I imagine them. But because they are pieces of a different dimension, right? The steading themselves have to leave too.
Yeah, totally. But I kind of imagine the Ogier fading away with them. But no, the idea that, like, I like that if you're outside the steading, you get left behind.
Yeah, you have to live out your life stuck on an alien planet.
And then you died, of course, because the longing would take you.
Yeah, or just natural causes. I mean, either way, like that's where you're dying.
But you you can't create a lineage.
Right.
And so Loyal promising to be there at Tarman Gaiden means that he is willing essentially to be outside the steading when the Book of Translation is opened, which would be a death sentence.
Well, and then he says, and if I can't be there, will you tell me what it was like after? Which, like, yeah, that would only work if he stayed behind and abandoned his people for the sake of the book. Wow, Loyal. You're just so loyal.
Yeah, dying in the middle of writing your book. Who could have foreseen an author that happening to?
Ugh. Too soon.
I'm so confused. I've sealed Loyal. I've sealed the way gates I know in Camelin and Kyrian, Ilion and Tyr. I put a very nasty trap on the one that was open near Faldara, but I couldn't find the one near Farmading. Even when I know there's a way gate actually in the city, I can't find it myself. I need you to find the rest for me, Loyal. Didn't he do that already?
Didn't he do that already? He did.
Yeah.
That's what him and Carlton were doing, right?
Yeah.
Was that not what they were doing?
I'm so confused by that statement.
Yeah, much agreement on being confused.
Loyal meets Perrin is, a crown of swords. Carlton and Loyal visit all the steading except steading Shantai, visit all but those in the borderlands and the Shadow Coast to post guards at the Waygate.
Oh, they're talking to the leaders of all the steading. They're not damaging the Waygates. They should have been damaging the Waygates. That's what they should have been doing. We were wrong about that. Should I go back in editing and make it so we were never wrong about that?
I don't think so. I think it's just one of those things that's like, why are they? They went to all the steading. They're just not sealing them, which seems just that was the whole point. I'm so frustrated that we're redoing that. That like they didn't just
like wasted effort. We wasted Loyal's effort for books.
Yeah,
that's silly. Yeah, that's very silly. Very, very silly. I don't like that. Lilligen, I don't think there could be waygates in Shanshan because you'd have to know where you were growing the ways to, and they wouldn't know about what was going on over there.
Yeah, you need the talisman of growing to grow a waygate to a place.
Yeah.
The waygates were built outside of the gardens, right? Not necessarily outside of steadings. Outside of the...
They were built anywhere where the Ogier might want to go, so that way they could quickly move through the world. So cities where they were doing lots of stonework also got waygates.
Okay. Just so they were never that far away from their steading.
Yeah, so they wouldn't have to travel overland, so to speak, very much. So yeah, Rand basically asks Loyal to redo all of the work that he already did, and Elder Hammond is like, no, Loyal has more important things to do. How about I go be your gopher?
Right.
And that occupies him for the rest of the series.
Do we ever find out, like, if that's successful?
No. I mean, we don't have any big disastrous things happening at Waygates other than the Camelin Waygate, as far as I know.
Yeah, the only thing we have with Hammond is that he shows up in A Memory of Light.
Okay, so he does get to come back and fight in the last battle. Well, that's good for him.
Yeah. I think Elder Hammond's had a bit of a taste for adventure, too. He just doesn't want to admit it.
I know. He's disguising it as like, I'll take over, but he rushed to fill that need real quick.
He did.
Catswain's like, it's to Verin. I'm like, Catswain, I think he just forgot how much fun it is to travel.
And where is his mom heading?
To the stump also.
Yeah. Right? So Elder Hammond no longer has to travel.
He wants anything to not have to travel with her anymore. He's so over her. Oh, that's funny.
Because then he can just be an Ogier. He doesn't have to be Elder Hammond, right?
Yeah. He's like, actually, I want to travel in Ogier incognito and just cruise for a minute. That would be a nice break before I have to go fight in the end of the world.
And he also, I think he believes that, like, yeah, you need the youth to lead the stump, right? I need this man to step up, and he's been out there and he's seen, like, no one can argue the way Loyal can for the people.
Right. And he's like, you're going to surprise a lot of people, including yourself, including your mother. Like, you got this. The kids are all right. I'm saying it. Elder Hammond, you, the kid, Loyal, are all right.
So in comes Davram Bashir.
Yeah.
Escorted by dark friend Ezra Penfell.
Elza Penfell.
Elza Penfell. Which honestly sounds like a Bond villain name.
Truly.
Yes, Miss Penfell.
Yeah, you think she's the secretary for the first act, but then it turns out she was actually the mob boss the whole time.
Exactly.
Yeah, Davron comes in to mourn his dead first, and then to report to Rand about the meeting with the Daughter of the Nine Moons. And that was just going to be the meeting, but then he has to do the whole mourning of 19 of his Saldeans getting slaughtered.
I love Elza trying to stay, and Rand being, go help with the cleanup, and her being like, fuck, fine.
Right, and Rand looks at her and thinks, well, clearly she's not who Verin's talking about, because Elza's fervent. And it's like, she is exactly who she's talking about. God, so dense, these Two Rivers boys. Verin gives them a letter that spells it out, and they're just like, not going to read it, not going to hear it.
She, at least, was one he did not have to worry about. It's like,
She's
Rand.
precisely who you have to worry about.
Jordan proving his character's wrong. As soon as someone says, well, I don't have to worry about that person being a dark friend. Fuck, they're a dark friend.
Right, totally.
Bashir saying, I think I saw a foreshadowing of Tarman Gaiden. It's like, yep, you sure did.
Yeah.
That's Jordan pointing that out to us. Like, this is kind of what it's going to look like.
And then he says, I hope this is the war to end all wars, but also I know humanity, and we'll fight again after this is over, because we're fucking
The wheel
dumb.
will turn.
We're so silly.
But he brings news of
Surath,
the dark friend, right? And she arranged a meeting between Rand and the quote-unquote daughter of the Nine Moons in 3 days, which we know, of course, is going to be Semirhage. It'll be Semirhage disguised as the daughter of the Nine Moons.
It's so silly, too. They're like, we're going to have you meet a really important head of state in an area that is an enemy control. You got to sneak your way out to this random place that isn't even within our own zone of control. And that's where you're going to meet one of our precious heads of state. I'm like, that is so suspicious. That is so suspicious. That's like, I have a brand new video game console and you have to meet me at midnight behind the school and bring only nickels. Like, no, come on.
Oh, and by the way, don't tell anybody else. Only talk to me. Don't call the cops.
Yeah. Like, no, that's not what it looks like. That's absolutely not what's happening.
And Altara just crowned a new king. We know that's Veslin, yeah.
And everyone was walking on eggshells, Shan-Chan and Altaran alike. That's because Tylan was murdered and no one knows why. No one knows who did it. Everyone is looking over their shoulders.
I disagree. I think it's because Tuon's missing.
Well, that too. Well, but the Altarans aren't nearly as concerned about that because they don't care, right? The Altarans are freaked out because of the Tylan thing. The Shan-Chan are freaked out a little because of the Tylan thing and mostly because of the Tuon thing.
Right.
It's just, there's a lot going on there, and Bashir has no idea any of it. He just knows that everyone's freaked out.
Well, particularly Surath looked as though she had a sword hovering above her neck. That's the apology she doesn't want to have to make.
Yes. That is the missing daughter of the Nine Moons of it all. Which, Bashir can't be clued into for obvious reasons.
She agrees to let him bring, 5 channelers?
6 female channelers and 5 male channelers. So 6 and 6.
No, I thought it was just you can bring 5 people who can channel. She'll assume any man with you who can't, right? Because there's 5 people who can channel plus him makes 6 channelers.
She's bringing 6. Okay, I was misreading that.
Right. So it's 6 channelers of each, right?
Yeah. And Olivia makes a noise like an angry cat, which never gets explained. But I assume that means that she's reading certain Shan-Chan hierarchy strategy stuff in it and going, oh, this is not the arrangements how they should be. Like, this is more that should be or something.
I kind of assumed it was the mention of Suldam.
Oh, that's probably more accurate. I am just wrong about everything today. Like, just bask in it. Take all your victory laps, because I'm just in the wrong lane.
Well, I can't wait to get the last 3 books where you're just going to be wrong a lot because you don't have the expertime on those the way you do.
Yeah, you're all getting a foreshadowing for what it's like to have the Pedia fall off of the Aradia.
Time to go pull some more berry bushes.
Basically. It is, well, it's not quite the season for it, because now it's bird nesting season, so I really got to leave all that stuff alone because all the little songbirds are, like, making nests in there. All right, so Min tries to inveigle herself onto the trip. Rand is like, no. Min is like, we'll talk about it. Luce Theron's like, that is dire, and it's just funny.
And true.
As a person who doesn't want to talk about anything serious, only silly things, cannot relate.
Yeah, we need to talk, or we'll talk about it. Definitely one of those things like, oh, fuck. All right, well, I'm not getting yelled at here because there's other people present, but it's not going well for me when we get home.
Yeah. Nah. All right, POV shift. We made it to our first fucking break. This has been quite the recording. It's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Because this next one's the exciting one. So I need to take a short break.
Okay.
But yeah, no, I'm really excited about this. Obviously, the guy's wedding is occupying about 90% of my brain at all points in time. And so, the reason I wanted to bring this up is because one of the rings Nyneave's wearing is a ring bearing a flawless sapphire was on her right hand.
Boom!
And that,
there we go.
Boom! Right,
there
that was my connection.
All
right, right. So, the sapphire ring, because that's exactly the ring I got for Never, and the ring I have for myself. So, I like the idea that the ring I got for Never is the one that tells her it turns cold if I'm feeling hostile. But do you want to actually read us into this this POV?
Yeah, all right. So we are returning to the chapter and shifting POVs to Nyneave. Lifting the damp cloth that lay across her eyes, carefully so she did not catch the bracelet and rings en Grial in her hair, she wore that and her jeweled Turangrial every waking moment now, Nyneave sat up on the edge of her bed. With men needing healing from dreadful wounds, some missing a hand or an arm, it had seemed petty to ask healing for a headache, but the willow bark seemed to have worked as well, only more slowly. One of her rings, set with a pale green stone that now appeared to glow with a faint internal light, seemed to vibrate continually on her finger, though it did not really move. The pattern of vibrations was mixed, a reaction to Saidar and Saidine being channeled outside. For that matter, someone could have been channeling inside. Cadsuane was sure it should be able to indicate direction, but she could not say how. Ha! For Cadsuane and her supposed superior knowledge. She wished she could say that to the woman's face. It was not that Cadsuane intimidated her. Certainly not. She stood above Cadsuane. Just that she wanted to maintain some degree of harmony. That was the reason she held her tongue around the woman.
Yeah, you stand above her, not at all.
Okay, Nyneave. Okay.
Yeah, technically.
Sure.
It's like when you're technically somebody's boss, but they've been at the company for like twice as long as you, had your job, and then like decided they didn't want to do it anymore. And you walk in and you're like, I'm going to tell you how to do... And they're like, no, you're not.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
no, you're not.
Yeah.
You might technically be my boss, but you're not going to tell me shit.
Yeah.
So, Terangrial, we have a ring that vibrates that tells you when Saidine and Saidar are being used near you and could probably tell you the direction. I'm assuming there's some, like, user manual that has different patterns that says, like, coming from the east, coming from the west.
Right. It's like those hand gestures that you can use, or like click patterns you can use on various speakers where, oh yeah, you can take calls and hang up and all this stuff. And you're like, I'm not going to remember all of that.
But again, just all the things that we learned that Nyneave's Terangrial can do, which is she can detect Saidine and Saidar channeling, which is not something that anybody else can do.
She's gotten seriously powered up with her abilities. Not only is she Nyneave Almira with all the power that comes with that, she's got a lot of little magical augmentations to her senses, to her sturdiness, to her endurance, to her capacity, all that.
She's a tank.
Yeah.
She and Cadsuane are tanks
Absolutely.
at this point. Right? They are all the things that were like, why don't channelers have shields? Why don't channelers do this? Why? They did. And they made rings and things like that. And they're essentially in battle armor. And she's wearing her battle armor 24/7. Every waking moment, she's in battle armor. Channeler battle armor. Also, I kind of love the reference to, like, D&D games where you, like, have a bunch of rings where you're just like, oh yeah, I've got 10 fingers, I'm gonna put on all the magic rings, right? Like, how much equipment can I load myself down with? I kind of, yeah, there's definitely this magic. Vuji, did you type that before or after I said that?
yeah, magic item gear starting to stack up like a high level D&D character. Yeah, no, I mean, she definitely is. She is completely kitted out in stuff that glows now.
It's got the magic shimmer on it for sure.
Yeah, every last thing she's wearing. So yeah, she wakes up, she's covered in gear. She says, I'm gonna go back outside and keep helping. And Lan says, nah, you're way too tired. You need to stay in here and keep chilling out.
And we get a description of the room that's just a complete dump, but she and Lan live there together, so it's paradise, right? That whole home is where the heart is, home is where my lover is, right? Like, that's what makes it a home, is that she's spending it. It's a private space that she can enjoy Lan's company in private, where he gets to give commands.
I mean, it's more than just that, but yeah. It is a mood though. Like, if you're in a happy partnership, then yeah, it really doesn't matter where you are because, you're there with your best friend. So it's fine.
So, and then we get this ring, this with the flawless sapphire on it that tells her that somebody's feeling hostile nearby because, of course, Lan's pissed off at something. I wasn't entirely sure what he was angry about because he's hard to read because he's Lan.
I mean, it's the internal turmoil about Rand not going to the Borderlands and ignoring the Borderlands.
Okay,
it's that
the
whole
thing
thing.
he's complains
It's what
about.
she
Yeah,
asks him
right.
about. She's like, "Why are you upset?" That's what she's feeling, is that he's upset about something, and she's like, "Why?" And then the chapter
Basic
goes the way
reading
it does.
comprehension. Thank you. Right.
Should I explain it more?
I did read this chapter before we started, I swear, but there's so much in it.
It's a dense chapter.
It's a dense chapter. We sort of get the interplay between them that I really like, where he's like, dude, you've got a headache, you need to stop channeling. And she's like, you don't know more about me than channeling. He's like, I kind of do. I've been doing this for 20 years. You have been doing it for 3 max.
Right. Right.
Really, and you denied you were doing it for the first, you were doing some healing before that, but like, yeah, you don't know any of the rules, you don't know any of the limits. I can see that you're tired. You should probably not be channeling.
Yeah, it gives me the same feeling as like when Brandon and I are having a night where we're drinking and I'm like, let's have another drink. And he's like, you need to drink water first. And I'm like,
Yeah.
You are not the boss of me. Even though I literally have told him repeatedly, please make me drink water when we're drinking.
Right.
Please, whatever I say, however I respond, please just push through and make me drink water. And then he goes to do it. And I am like, you are not the boss of me. Get out of here with your facts and your requests from past me. Get out. And so this reminds me of that.
It reminds me of when someone is convinced that birds can't smell. And
Okay.
I have to basically push through that.
Okay.
And
I have to go. Fucking hell. This is how to be wrong, people. This is how to do it. Apparently it's hard for people to know how to be wrong. So here's me modeling being wrong.
oh yeah, it's really easy for you. I can
I'm
tell.
having a fine time.
You're taking it so
I'm
well.
having a great time. Everything is perfect.
Just take your ball and go home. Take my microphone and get out of here.
The worst part is I have to listen to all of this again when I edit it.
And the worst part is, as you're saying it with confidence that you're wrong, and you have to listen to yourself say the wrong thing with the utmost confidence, and knowing that later on you're going to have to eat that crow. And it's just, it's miserable. There's nothing, honestly, the worst part about, I can get used to my voice. I got used to the reading. I got used to the ums and the sniffles and all that. Fine. Being wrong and having to relive it is so fucking painful.
It sucks.
Yeah. Because when you're wrong in real life, you can just be like, okay, I was wrong. Move and just move on.
Yeah.
Move on.
As an editor, it's worse. It's so much worse. Good times. We get reminded of how the dynamics of the sea folk marriage work with the obeying in public and private sort of thing and all of that. We get that reiterated. We think about the other people who have been in the house because Nyneave and Lan have seen some of them, and so we just kind of think about some people that exist. They're not really very interesting.
Yeah, don't have a lot of notes here for a little bit. Just a lot of thoughts about people. There's a paragraph of name salad here where I'm just like, none of those people matter.
Yeah, they really don't. There's an interesting part where she sees a circle of 13 weaving the power, and she can tell that a man is directing the flows because even though Sidar is being used because it's a full circle of men and women, there's a man in control because of how the Sidar is getting moved. It's just like clunky, and she's like, well, clearly a man is in charge of that circle. And I thought that was kind of a fun little mechanical thing.
They're learning how to use the circles. They're linking for the first time, right?
Days.
Which it's early days, but this is super important because this is men and women working together. This is the whole point of the cleansing and the idea that Rand needs women to win the last battle. He needs men and women. He needs men and women working together in a way that he didn't have in the previous age, right? Men and women split off and fought separately. And it's that thing like so many people complain about. And I was just reading reviews the other day because I was about the Wheel of Time, and people were like, the man versus woman thing is so overdone in the beginning. And it's like, yeah, because in the end it's showing that it's hurting them, and resolving that helps them.
Yeah. Yeah.
You need a character's journey. It's like when someone's like, oh, he was such an asshole. And I'm like, yeah, but then he went through a journey. And like a character can't redeem themselves without doing shitty things first. Right?
Yeah.
Like there's no redemption arc unless there's a failure or a flaw. And I think people forget that, and they're like, oh, but this character used to be flawed. And we do that to real people too, right? And we're doing that, and especially in modern media, is like we're digging up shit that people said in the past, and like, yeah, I don't believe that anymore. I was wrong, And I'll be the first to say, like, there's a bunch of shit in high school and probably even in college that I thought and said that I would not stand behind anymore.
Yeah, for sure. I even read a foreword to a book that I need to read the whole thing of, but I started with the foreword just the other day, where this person was like, this is a collection of essays that I wrote over like a 10-year period. And anything that I say in these essays that is contradicted by something I've said later, the later version takes precedence because I have evolved and thought about things and come to new conclusions about these same topics in the course of the time since I wrote these essays that I nonetheless think there's value in publishing. Like, yeah, there's going to be contradictory stuff in there. Whatever I said most recently is the most accurate to how I think. Like, that's just like, and this person's talking about like within the context of their own work. We're not talking about like, bad behavior apologism or anything, but like
right
yeah, people do evolve and change and learn, and things are clunky at the beginning and they get smoother with practice, one hopes. And yeah, you cannot start a character at 10. They have to start at 1 and work their way towards 10, because otherwise what's the friction driving the plot? If everyone's perfect and has all their problems solved, then why are we here? What's the story? If we're not solving a problem, what is the story then?
Nyneave has to be hypercritical. Nyneave and Matt have to be hypocritical, right? Brand has to, idealize people and put them up on a pedestal in a way that, makes him fail. Perrin has to have, autism. Makes him not very good with other people, right? Like, they all have their things that they have to overcome.
Yeah. And here we have to overcome the normal mode of Lan, which is to not talk about his problems. Nyneave manages to get him to share his unpleasant thoughts by being very polite and asking a question rather than demanding an answer, because that's how their marriage vows worked. And Lan, in an unusual display of communicativeness, because it's his wife and she asked very nicely, actually shares his thoughts on what's happening, which is that Rand is fucking up royally by not focusing on the Borderlands.
And I kind of agree with him. He needs to resolve this thing with the Seanchan, right? Like, it needs to be over.
Yeah. Dancing around with the Seanchan forever is how we got to book 11 without having anything happen for like books and books and books.
Right. Because that was the Path of Daggers, right? Is he went and lightninged the Seanchan and it didn't do any good. He kind of beat them badly, but only one section of them, and did as much damage to his own army. So what was the point? Right? It did stop them from advancing.
For a bit.
Rand, stop cleaning your room and go sit down and write the paper.
Right.
Right? You're procrastinating.
Right. Yes. Very much. Oh my God.
It feels like you're doing work, but you're not. You're not.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely not. The work that you desperately need to do is not weeding the garden again.
Mm-hmm. So then Nyneave hatches her plot and basically says, so you have to go back. I always knew this would happen, and so I've been planning, thinking I could help you out.
Yeah, and then she very carefully says, I will take you to the Borderlands. Your duty lies there. You want to go to Shinar? ? She very carefully punctuates that series of sentences. So that way she says, I will take you to the Borderlands. You want to get to Shinar, ergo, I will take you as far away from Shinar as I can get you.
And still be in the Borderlands.
And still be in the Borderlands. Like, she is so careful. And this, kids, is why punctuation matters.
I also love this. A Borderlands saying, I heard from you once. Are you fucking once? Every fucking 5 minutes.
Times a book. Oh my god.
I'm pretty sure he says it before he goes to bed and when he gets up in the morning. She probably hears. He's like, I heard it from you once earlier this week or this today.
Once in the last hour.
Oh, right. Death is lighter than a feather. Duty heavier than a mountain. I mean,
and then it's so weird because she says her duty is to stay with Rand and keep Olivia from killing him, which feels like the least part of what she does, because Olivia is not actively trying to kill Rand, and Nyneave has nothing to do with why she's not trying to kill Rand, because she's not actually trying to kill Rand. She's trying to help Rand, which means helping him die. And it's just like, Nyneave, you're doing so much for Rand. Why is this what you're claiming?
But she never does what she's supposed to do. That's the thing, is Nynaeve's like, I'm going to go do this. She doesn't do it.
That's true. That's true.
And also, I think what she's trying to do is give an excuse to Lan, right? That might not be what she necessarily intends to do 100%. It is something she plans on doing because she's telling the truth. But it's not something that she necessarily... She thinks that's why Lan will go and give her, leave her behind. Is this duty to help Rand, right? Because that's what Lan got tangled up in this whole thing to begin with, right? It's his love of Nyneave and his duty to help Rand.
I feel like she could have just said that her duty was to stay with Rand and support him. I just feel like that's so much more critical to what she's doing and understandable than the woman who's not trying to murder Rand will only not murder him if I'm there. It's just I don't know. I find it odd, but she is doing a lot for Rand. So I mean, the ultimate point is fine because she does need to stay with him. And Lan says, "I accept this if you're sure." And Nyneave, very eyes to die, wiggles her way out of that because she's not sure, but she just rhetorical questions her way out of answering. And they pack. He packs, and she changes clothes, and they head out. She goes and looks at maps, too, because she has to familiarize herself with the area she's going to. But you can do that if you're going for just a general geography thing. You can just look at a map and say, I want to be at the foot of this hill overlooking the ocean or whatever.
There's a very important promise she gets from Lan first, though.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Yes, I want a promise from you that you'll ride to Falmoran before you enter the Blight, and that if anyone wants to ride with you, you'll let him. Him thinking, oh, you're going to drop me in the south of Shinar, and I'm going to have to ride, across a couple 100 miles to get there, right? Fine, I get it, right? You're going to delay me a little bit. That's fine. There'll be a journey. Not realizing, not only is she going to deposit him a couple 100 miles away, but a couple of 1,000 miles away. And he's going to have to ride across the thousands of miles. Because he's essentially riding across the continent, right?
Yep.
It's like depositing, it's like someone's like, I want to go to Canada, to Nova Scotia, let's say, Canada. And you say, all right, well, I'll take you to the border of America and Canada.
Right.
You want to go to Nova Scotia? I'll take you to the border. And you take them to Seattle.
Right. Right. Yeah.
And I say, you promise me you're going to walk to Nova Scotia from where I drop you off. I'll take you to the border, but you promise me you'll walk to Halifax.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And they're like, okay, I'll walk across Nova Scotia, not realizing, nope, you got to walk across the entire freaking continent.
Yeah. Yeah. And in that example, you'd have to cross a big-ass mountain range and a couple of smaller ones. One assumes that Lan is being asked to do something not too dissimilar in terms of his topographic range. He's going to be asked to really brave some shit.
There's a reason it takes him the whole book to travel across that area and gathers quite an army.
Right. Aside from the part where she's, spreading word across the whole thing. There's just a lot of time because he has to travel a lot of different terrain.
I know this. It was very hard dealing with a husband if you could not lie even when it was absolutely necessary. Yeah, Nyneave.
I could not have my marriage be like that. I mean, I can lie by omission because I have emotional intimacy issues, but like that's different.
But that's different.
It's different. This idea that you have to lie to people about what you're doing and why you're doing it, like in this very logistical way, like about things that actually matter, is just like, I don't have the energy for that. I don't have the mental power to do that sort of thing.
It's one of the few ways that I really feel that Robert Jordan falls into the boomer humor category of like,
yeah,
haha, wife bad, must lie to her. I have to go into the office, goes golfing all day, right? Like that level of just like, I need peace, so I'm going to lie to get my peace.
Yeah. Because
I can't talk to them maturely and say, hey, I need a little bit of time to go do things I want to do.
Yeah. It feels like a dated piece of humor that doesn't need to apply, for sure. Which,
right.
Yeah, boomer humor.
That's all. Yeah, boomer humor. Yeah, it's like, sorry, that was funny in the day, and that was acceptable as funny, and now we've decided that it's kind of weird, and we like our spouses. We're not forced because culture changes, right? We're not forced to get married at a young age to the first person who comes along because it's expected that you get married and have kids at a young age. Despite the fact that you did it, I did the opposite. We're basically the opposite ends of the spectrum, right? Like
Yeah, well, I didn't have kids though.
That's true.
I got married super young, but I didn't have kids.
Didn't have the kids.
So that is the one weird monkey wrench to the model. But yes, broadly speaking.
So I'm just going to ask, as someone who's getting married to someone who's been married, is lying to your spouse helpful in a marriage?
No, not well. Okay, there's one context, and that's when planning surprise birthday parties.
Okay.
There are sometimes, in order to get certain gifts and other things arranged, you do have to just do a little bit of lying. But like, that's it. That's it.
The only time I've lied to Never was the surprise proposal.
Yeah, exactly. That is an acceptable exception because you gotta just.
And she could tell she was like, I knew you were sneaking around. I was she was legitimately worried that I was cheating for a minute because of the way, because I'm a terrible liar. I'm awful at it. I was obviously lying. And she's had, ex-boyfriends cheat on her. So she's like, what's going on? Something's going on. So then when I sprung it on her, she was like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm. Like, yes, you were secretly texting with a girl. It was your sister because logistics. Yeah. But all that to say, no, I find honesty is the best policy if you want to have a happy and harmonious years-long relationship with your best friend and cohabitate with them. You really gotta prioritize honesty even when it feels really, really like staring at the sun. You really gotta do that. I don't think lying is how you manage a marriage successfully. Like there is certainly keeping your brutal honesty to yourself sometimes.
Yes.
That is part of a harmonious marriage. But again, that is not what Nyneave's talking about. Nyneave is talking about just straight up lying about your intentions. And I don't think that that's helpful.
Yeah, there's some bread I ate today that got made that she put a lot of work into. And I ate that bread. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I didn't say it. I didn't say a word. Bread's tricky. Let's put it that way.
It is. Brandon has crossed a threshold into being a bread wizard, but it took a lot of time. A lot of time.
Well, add the gluten-free complication on top of that, right? That makes bread.
Yeah, no. A big part of what he's learned is how to make the gluten work. So, right. So take gluten out of the equation. Oof.
Whole different science, and it's not nearly as developed either. So
yeah. Shall we return to things that will not get edited out? We have a nice public kiss.
Kiss me.
Yeah. We have a full-blown Nyneave land makeout session in the stable yard. It's great. Sometime later.
It's very sexy. Mm-hmm. In a lot of ways, it's sort of the last time they get sexy as hell, right? Like,
yeah, it's the last time that they interact in a meaningful way for the whole books.
Nyneave doesn't trust Olivia, right? Lan says, Rand trusts her. That's all I need to know. Which we went into that whole trust thing already.
Yeah. And then there's this ridiculous series of lines from Robert Jordan where he thinks he's being tongue in cheek. The Black Stallion seemed as calm as his rider now that Lan was on his back. she could understand that. Lan had a very calming effect on her too. Usually, sometimes he had exactly the opposite effect. I'm just like, on her back, really, Jordan? Really? We're gonna think about Lan and Nyneave in that position, huh? We're doing that.
We're doing that. Yep.
All right. Okay. Cool. Very very clever. Very subtle.
No.
All right.
No.
All right.
No. There's nothing subtle about that. Maybe I missed it as a kid, but no, these books came out after I was an adult. There, I never missed that.
Yeah, it's just like,
okay,
all right. And then of course, while they're having this makeup session and this discussion, in the background there is this like absolute comedy of them trying to get the horse saddled, and then the horse is calm now that Lan's on. It's just like the way that this could visually be playing out is just even more comic than it is on the page. If you actually blocked this out as like a stage production, like, oh my god.
Everyone freaking out in the background, and then like them lovingly kissing in the foreground, completely oblivious to everything going on.
And then suddenly this weirdly raunchy like moment with the horse. Just like, why are we doing this? But it's just Robert Jordan would have wanted it that way, because he literally wrote it that way.
You lady have too much free time on your hands. And you can finish that quote any way you'd like.
Well, I still have yet to acquire a dog, so, you know.
So, okay. There's something weird going on with the traveling weaves.
Yep.
Two things going on with traveling weaves. One, the idea that she creates a weave that's short enough that she forces them to dismount, unweaves it, and reopens a weave that lets them remount. That's tall enough for them to mount and go through. Second, how the fuck does she make a gateway at her destination? Are we in that retcon where if you make a gateway to somewhere, that lets you know it well enough to then make a gateway anywhere else from that position?
Yeah. We have crossed into retcon territory.
Yeah, that's the only thing that explains it. And I think only what happens later is that you can do that short gateway. Like, if you can see where you're going, you can do a short hop, and that lets you know a place long enough to do the long hop.
Exactly.
Right? And so now you have to do the long hop and then a long hop. But, like, she clearly knows the place well enough to leave from her camp, because she stays there.
Yeah. I was imagining that the gateway was in the stable yard, but it's not. They have to ride out to where the traveling ground is. That's why they're up on their horses in the first place.
But then she deliberately creates a gateway too short for them to ride through, so that Lan has to dismount.
But then he doesn't take the time to remount and dash through the thing after her. She can remount and do all that, like, while he's busy staring at the ocean, I guess. Which just seems very, I don't know. I'm surprised that he is so slow on the uptake.
But yeah, the fact that she simply gets off and weaves another gateway feels wrong to me.
Yeah, it feels like this is the beginning of the now we're being clever with gateways section, which like Sanderson obviously runs with, but this does feel like the beginning of, oh, I didn't think of that loophole. How convenient. Because basically they walk through a hole in the air and then she makes it rotate to show a different location on the other end, but it's the same on this end, right? So it's like, because she's learned this spot, right? Because she made a place to it. So now she can like turn it around and make it open up the other way. But yeah, then she makes it bigger and remounts, which like remounting without a mounting block or someone to help you up is actually kind of hard. Like, I don't know if you've ever like tried getting up onto a horse, but like it's a long way. Like, you have to put your leg really far up to get to the stirrup. Like, you have to be hella strong to do that without some kind of boost or block or something. So I'm impressed she can do that.
I mean, but they also ride all the time, every day. They've been riding for how many years they've spent on the road. I give them some credit for being skilled riders at this point and able to boost themselves up into a saddle without a block.
I suppose.
Also, she's Nyneave. She lifts herself up with pure stubbornness. It's fine.
That's super valid. Super valid.
Or maybe she channeled a block.
Or maybe she channeled a little block of air.
Right, she was actually channeling, right? Why not, weave a block of air to step onto?
I mean, honestly, that's what I'd be doing all the time. As a short person, I would be step stooling myself around with the power all the time.
One possibility I thought of is that she's come here and stayed long enough to learn the place and then wove a gateway back. And so that way when she goes, she can come back immediately.
Nah, she explicitly went to a library to look at maps while Lan was packing his bags. There's no way she had time to do this.
Right. So, of course, Lan, like, takes a few steps and, like, looks around and goes, wait a minute. This is Saldea, where you put me in Washington. What's going on?
Yeah,
I'm in
exactly.
Seattle.
Like out on, like, the Olympic Peninsula. Like, way out on the far end of the Olympic Peninsula. Like, it's so far away from Nova Scotia. So far.
I love that Nova Scotia... Because Nova Scotia is where I was born. See, here's my little mental, right?
Nova Scotia is your
Malkier. Nova
yeah.
Scotia is my Malkier, and I was born there, but I haven't gone back because I'm a king in exile. That's actually my story.
You're the king of Nova Scotia.
I didn't want you to know. Don't tell anybody from Nova Scotia.
What kind of Trollocs have taken over in Nova Scotia lately?
Bears. They're all bears up there.
We all choose the bear, so let's go. Let's pack our bags and go.
Would you choose the Trolloc? That's the question. The Trolloc versus the man.
No, because Trollocs are man bears. They're both, so that there's too much man in the mix.
Man, bear, pig.
So yeah, Nyneave says no goodbye kisses because I am actually kind of dumping you right now. I mean, not like breaking up, but like I'm just like running away and leaving you annoyed, and you're gonna get over it by the time we see each other again.
I mean, it's basically what Matt does to the Golem, just a little less violent.
A lot less falling. But yeah, very, very similar.
It's like you go through the gateway and I'm not going to see you again.
Yeah. And where does she make the gateway to when she bounces out? Do you think that she like knew where she was going in Shinar or wherever?
Yes, because again, she was looking at the maps, right? So she's planned out her journey to go bounce, right? Because again, she can make fucking gateways every time she goes to her destination. So she has a series of destinations that she's going to go to set up the pathway, basically, for Lan to be caught. Because every place that he's going to stop on the way, she's like, look out for Lan, he's coming.
Right. And then the news is spreading, and then you get people that are like out looking for him in the first place, and yeah, all of that. So yeah, I guess she just gateway to the next town 100 miles over, next city center, then just worked her way to the east.
So we switch to a POV, and it's a few hours past midday. What time does she gateway him out?
They gateway out around twilight at night. Lan says that it is a few hours until twilight. It probably takes them an hour to get their stuff together and ride out. So it's getting on towards evening when they leave. And so when we do this POV switch here in a sec, we're several hours later. This is perhaps not her first trip today or her first visit. This is perhaps one of the visits in the middle of her day. Because also, they just traveled a good couple of time zones, right? By going all the way to the far western edge of the continent.
Right. Yeah. It would have been quite a bit earlier. But this is a few hours past midday. So this has got to be the next day after she drops off Lan.
I could see her taking a whole day to do her golden crane seeding across the continent, because it's a lot. I mean, she says she's got to be back in Tyr by tonight, so I think she actually does it all in one day. She doesn't stay overnight anywhere. So I'm guessing that when she went west, this might actually be one of the first places she stops, and it is in the west. Because where is this? The Queen's Lands? Yeah, they're in Saldea. They're on the seawall. So she goes to... So she leaves Lan and goes to the nearest city center, and that is where the next POV picks up, is the nearest city center. And so, because she went from early evening to midday, she went from, Texas to Washington. A couple hours different. But that's not right. That's only a couple hours.
Mm-mm. Yeah, it shouldn't be that long.
How many time zones are we talking in this context? Where were they?
Oh gosh.
What country were they in?
Initially, Tyr. Yeah.
Yeah, that is diagonally across the continent. So if we assume that the continent is half a day's worth of time zones, then that works. Only a few hours past midday and early evening. Yeah, that could work. If it was a few hours past midday, could be 3, and if it was like twilight is soon, then that was 6. So, from Florida to Washington would be 3 hours.
Yeah, okay. I'll buy it. I'll buy it with the time change. That works. That she goes directly from one place to the other. What's with this guy's name? Aldragoran? Isn't that?
Yeah, Aldragoran is how they say it in the
Aldragoran?
audiobook. Which is like Almandragoran. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
so they have one name.
Right. It's like,
Okay, all right.
well, I feel like it's almost a joke about like the Irish, how it's all like O'Brien or
Sure.
some sort of like everyone there has the same last name or it sounds all the same because they're all related to each
Yeah.
other. So he's definitely Malkieri.
Some silly commentary on regional names. Yeah. That's how you can tell it's Malkieri, is because it sounds almost like Land's name.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's my best
Sure.
guess.
I'll take it. So he is a jewel merchant, this Waylon Aldragoran, and he's a jewel merchant. He's leveraging his reputation as a big, scary Malkieri who were apparently all seen as like violent people, which seems like a strange reputation to have, but whatever, it gets him a good sale. He's vibing. He's all about the shiny. He's fun. He's fine.
Yeah, he's fine. I mean, I feel like Malkier, in a world of Borderlands full of violence, Malkier are living on their own. And the ones that are still alive or surviving without a lot of support, like they're gonna be unexpectedly violent occasionally. Like not often, but enough to get a reputation, right? Like
Yeah, and he's like just rides the reputation, right? He's not actually that kind of person. He was a toddler when the war happened. He just has it because his uncles has the Hedora because his uncles gave it to him. Like, but he vibes on his like little bit of cultural heritage. And it's like, oh, that's cool, whatever.
I thought he was pretty skilled with the sword, right? He's seldom been forced to use the sword, which means he has. And it was widely known that he could and would. So I imagine him to be highly trained. And I don't imagine his uncles giving him the Hedori unless he'd earned it. I imagine he has the ability to fight.
Yeah, it's the sudden unpredictable violence that I'm like, he doesn't seem like an unpredictably violent person. He seems like a very predictably violent person. Like if you fuck with him, you will find out.
Right. I think it's just the reputation of like when Malkier decided to be violent, they finish it quickly.
Yeah, and there's also
suddenly.
this idea that they're all super traumatized by the loss of Malkier, and like the Aes Sedai like won't participate with the the Channelers won't participate with the White Tower anymore, and like the men are just like angry and violent. Like they've all got this big trauma basically from the loss of Malkier, and no one wants to mess with that traumatized bear.
And so we sort of get to go with him on this whole transition where he's selling a bunch of gems for more than he thought he would get them for.
It's a fun world building, like general day in the life kind of scene.
Yeah. He sells it to the Eleanors and goes, I don't think they have enough guards for the amount of gems they've got. I don't have to worry because I'm Malkier, but they have to worry because they're going to get robbed. There's a bunch of robbers out because things have gotten worse.
Right, and the weirdness of like, why are your bodyguards carrying your wealth? Like, how are they going to guard your body if they're holding the lockbox? Like, it's silly, but whatever. They're Ileanors. I don't care. Racism.
And so then Nyneave shows up.
And then this woman shows up with a bunch of incomprehensible jewelry with gems he doesn't recognize. Some gems he recognizes, others he doesn't. And then there's one piece of jewelry that like freaks him out, and then his eyes jerk to her face, and then he suffers his second shock because she's got the red dot, and it's like the whole Malkieri thing, and we're all just like, it's Nyneave! But we're getting to see her from a total stranger's perspective, which is always fun.
And just like all the levels up, she's gone from like rural village wisdom to Aes Sedai with battle armor, married dot, silk dress, just ready and just like
level
ready
18
to
cleric
kick ass.
is just rolling up.
Right.
Like, let's get some shit
exactly.
done.
Yeah. The bling is blinking.
Yeah.
Let's say, yeah.
All her spell slots are full. She is ready to go.
And so she basically says, I want you to send, you've got a bunch of pigeons, right? Like because you have to keep the pigeons because they have to fly back to the place of origin, right? So you have to get that sort of delivery, and like you have to find somebody with a lot of pigeons. So she's saying basically, and you're Malchieri, right? So she's looking for a Malchieri who has a lot of correspondence.
I think she's mostly just looking for whoever has the most correspondence, and because reasons, it happens to be a Malchieri man. I don't think she's looking for Malchieri per se. I think that she just took advantage of that while she was there. I think she was going to make this pitch to anyone who seems to have Borderlander pride, and because plot reasons, the first one she found had a Hidori, so she was able to lean in super hard. But I don't know, maybe she was seeking out Malchieri specifically. I don't think so, though, because she makes the appeal to all the Borderlanders, because she saw how the Faldarans responded to Lan in book 1.
And so, yeah, he basically says, you know, she says, do you recognize this? And of course he does. It's Lan's ring. And like knowing that.
Right, because he's like, that's a lot of messages, but I'll do it. And she's like, okay, but also extra spice. You recognize this other ring? Like, first you recognize the one ring. Now you got to recognize this other ring. The golden crane.
That authenticates her message. Because without that second ring, it wouldn't be authentic, right? And of course that message is...
My name is Nyneave T. Almira Mandragoran. The message I want sent is this. My husband rides from World's End toward Tarwin's Gap, toward Tarmangaiden. Will he ride alone? Lan told me once that Malkier lives so long as one man wears the Hidori in pledge that he will fight the shadow. So long as one woman wears the Kaisign in pledge that she will send her sons to fight the shadow. I wear the Kaisign, Master Eldragoran. My husband wears the Hidori. So do you. Will Lan Mandragoran ride to the last battle alone? I'm tearing up. I'm tearing up.
Oh, man. Yeah, just that sacrifice and the sending someone to battle and bringing up the ghost of a dead country to fight for her husband. This thing that he thought was abandoned and that she knows is not, and is basically supplying the rallying call of the thing that he has given up. And like, Lan knows that there are remnants out there, but he has always said basically, there's so few of us left. If I lead us into battle, I will lead the extinction of the rest of the Malkier.
Yeah.
And basically the Malkier are responding and saying, yeah, that's our right.
Just like Manetherin did way back in the day.
Yeah.
I mean, technically they didn't go extinct, but they made that choice to risk it all in the same way. Yeah. Yeah, and she's giving Lan the one thing that he desperately needs but can't give himself, which is the support of the Borderlands. What he needs is all the Borderlands to rally around him, because he is Aragorn and he needs to, unite the kingdoms of men. And he just can't bring himself to do that. He just can't. But she can.
And who's the perfect person to unite the kingdoms, right? The one who doesn't lead a kingdom. All the rest of them can follow because he's no threat. He doesn't have his own armies. He doesn't have his own throne. But he has the authority of having that throne.
Yeah.
And the skills of being raised basically as a fighter in the Borderlands and being a warder. And like, warders are people the stories are made of. So like, he's a king and a warder, and it's just, he's got all the legends that he could have. If anyone was going to be a freaking Hero of the Horn, I thought Lan would be on that list.
Right. And Nyneave, she fails to heal Rand, the land in and of itself. But she does resurrect a nation, basically. Like, I mean, that's pretty good. It's not healing the entire planet as a whole, but resurrecting a nation out of sheer gumption is an accompliment.
And in a lot of ways, she is the mother to the next
Absolutely.
generation. Like, literally and, metaphorically, the mother to the next generation of Malkier.
Yeah, however many babies she has or doesn't have, she will be seen as the mother of the nation for the next several centuries of Malkieri history.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And we do know it comes back, right? Because it's cleansed during the last battle. It becomes livable land again.
Yep. It gets renewed.
And I'm assuming there's a fair amount of immigration.
Oh, yeah. A lot of parts
yeah.
of the world have been ravaged and are a mess, and people want to spread out, and the Shan-Chan threat is still going to be a thing. Like, oh yeah, there's going to be a lot of people who want to go homesteading in the newly de-blighted Malkier.
Not to mention it's close to the Aiel Nation, right? The old Aiel Nation, and Ruidian is pretty close, actually, to Malakir. Although everything's close now because we got gateways.
Whee!
Yeah.
But yeah, that's going to be a nation of pioneers who don't have to do anything problematic to be pioneers. They can just go move into new land, and it'll be great.
And then I want to read the next paragraph.
Yeah.
He was laughing, shaking with it, and yet he could feel tears rolling down his cheeks. It was madness, complete madness, but he could not help himself. I cannot stand surety for anyone else, but I swear to you, under the light, and by my hope of rebirth and salvation, he will not ride alone. For a moment she studied his face, and then nodded once firmly, and turned away. He flung out a hand after her. May I offer you wine, my lady? My wife will want to meet you. Lydia was Saldean, but she definitely would want to meet the wife of the uncrowned king. Thank you, Master Aldragoran, but I have several more towns to visit today, and I must be back in Tyr tonight. He blinked at her back as she glided towards the door, gathering her cloak. She had several more towns to visit today, and she had to be back in Tyr tonight? Truly, Aes Sedai were capable of marvels. Silence hung in the common room. They had not been keeping their voices low, and even the girl with the dulcimer had ceased playing her hammers. Everyone was staring at him. Most of the Outlanders had their mouths hanging open. Well, Mannigan, Cornellin, he demanded, do you still remember who you are? Do you remember your blood? Who rides with me for Tarwin's Gap? For a moment he thought neither man would speak, but then Goranellin was on his feet, tears glistening in his eyes. The golden crane flies for Tarmangaiden, he said softly. The golden crane flies for Tarmangaiden, Mannigan shouted, leaping up so fast he overturned his chair. Laughing, Aldragoran joined them, all three shouting at the top of their lungs, The golden crane flies for Tarmangaiden!
I love it! I love it! I fucking love it! And everyone liked that. Everyone cheered. Everyone had a good time.
Yeah, I'm tearing up a little bit reading that. It's
so good!
It is the announcement. It is the final battle, right? Tarmangaiden has begun. The golden crane flies for Tarmangaiden.
Yeah.
It's the beginning of the last battle that we have been promised so many times, and I am so happy Robert Jordan started the last battle.
Yes.
In his writing.
Yes, it's not some subtle, you can point to exactly this moment because we're spoilers and we can subtly tell and da-da-da-da-da. Then Sanderson got to actually blow the trumpets. No, Jordan got to say, here it is. This is the moment. The gun is going off to start the race. Like, here we go. And to have it be in his prose, knowing that this is the last book we get from him is, really special.
And that ends the chapter.
And that ends the chapter at 2.5 hours of recording. This has been a doozy, but it deserved it. The Golden Crane deserved that kind of time.
It was a long chapter, yeah. Next chapter is not a short one either.
No,
right?
it is not.
We are in the Jordan Lanch, right? We are in the ending of this book where everything is significant, and I am here for it, and I love it. And I don't care if we have long recordings.
It's great. It's great. It's fantastic. My schedule hates it, but it's fine. I just need to stop being such a fuck off, and everything will be fine. It's fantastic. I'm so glad that we're here. This is really great. Having a great time. Okay, recording is on, and I want to ask you, did you see the Northern Lights?
No.
Aww.
No, I woke up and I looked out my window, and I was in the middle of the city, and I could see nothing because I really couldn't see the horizon, and everything was pretty lit up. And so I didn't really go outside and look. Apparently my coworkers who work night shift said they did go outside and they could see it in the sky, especially, and they took pictures of it and it was there, and I regret not going outside and actually taking a closer look now that I know. I assumed it was just one of those things where they said it might be visible and I looked up and it wasn't visible, so there's no real point in like putting in a lot of effort. Plus I had to work at 4:30 in the morning, and it was just, I literally woke up in the middle of the night and was like, I don't want to wake up. So I had that moment, and I have regrets that I didn't actually see it or get to take pictures of it, because I love night sky phenomenon like that, and the whole science behind it is really freaking cool. And yeah, how about you? Do you get to see it?
Kinda. Yeah.
Okay.
I do live, like I said, I live out in the country, so it is ostensibly dark, but our neighbors have this thing where they have porch lights that are bright and they don't feel like turning them off. And so we kind of had those beaming into our eyeballs when we went to look to the northeast, and that was great. But we went out originally, and there was this weird milky white glow that was almost like clouds, but it was kind of different. And we're like, all right, weird. We went back in, waited until like 11 or whatever when it was supposed to happen. And then we turned off all the lights in our house and went outside and looked. And there was totally like pulses of red and green lights in the sky. We couldn't see it like properly. Like it wasn't like the curtains. It really was felt very lackluster because these photons from our neighbors just kept beaming us straight in the eyeball. We should have like tried to find somewhere darker, but we did see it. It was a faint but definitely happening thing, and it was very, very cool. But lots of our neighbors posted better pictures than what we saw because they just had a darker vantage to stand at, and then it totally didn't come the second night at all. So, but no, it was eerie to see it, and it was just like an eclipse. It was amazing to know what was happening while also seeing something that just broke my monkey brain. Just like my animal brain was like, ah, and I'm like, science. It was very fantastic.
And that's what I wanted, because I that happened during the eclipse because I saw the moon as a spherical object hanging in the sky, and it broke my brain a little bit. And like, you see the 3D-ness of it, and like that's something I wanted again with the lights, and I didn't get to. And sometimes I wish I wasn't so tired all the time.
Yeah.
And that I didn't have to work at early hours, and that I had time to stay up late and then sleep in the next day. And by the way, Patreon support.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, it's just man.
Yeah, no, I mean, you were saying before, the atmosphere is really, really thin, but like the sense of unreality that the lights give you is how thick the atmosphere is compared to what we see,
are.
right?
Right.
It's, you see the eclipse, you see how round the moon is. You see the northern lights, you see how tall the atmosphere is, which is like, it is very, very, very thin, but also we are so infinitesimal compared to the planet. You look at the planet, you're like, oh yeah, the skin is really thin, and it's like, and how small are the little tiny particles that claim to know what's going on?
Right.
That thin skin, it's a tall atmosphere, turns out.
And size is relative, right? Like the thickness of the atmosphere compared to the size of the globe versus the thickness of the atmosphere compared to the size of us, right? Like two very different things.
Yes.
And also just, we're at this weird place in the middle of the size spectrum.
Yeah, I read a really interesting book a long time ago. I think I still have it, called The View from the Center of the Universe.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like, isn't it strange that we are smack dab in the middle of the size scale? Isn't that just a little interesting?
I mean, in the same way that we're smack dab in the middle of the visible universe, right? Like, it's like, of course we can measure things about as relatively small as we can but I know what you're saying. Like, he said that the smallest thing is the Planck length, the biggest thing is the size of the visible universe, right? And we're like basically
and
halfway,
we're right in the middle, and
logarithmically,
yeah. And I mean, in the book, I think also did go into, and we can also see equally in all directions, so we're literally in the center of the universe. It was just, they were finding all these different ways in which to be like, we're in the middle. Is that not a profoundly interesting thing? And it was like, yeah. I mean, I was like 19 and I read it. I was like, wow, this is blowing my mind. Like, every single thing that they take this lens to we're in the middle of the thing yet again. Like, what the fuck? Like, this is weird. I mean, they came to some conclusions that were weird, but like, you know, most of the book was just asking the question, which was like super valid.
Yeah, I wonder how much of that is just selection, right? Like, what do we see? We see things equal distance from us, so it looks like we're in the center.
Well, that's the kind of the question, right? Is this a coincidence, or is this something grander than a conceit of the limitations of existing? Like, is this true, or is this just an illusion of our perspective? Like, that is the question.
I saw an interesting one that was talking about how the axis of the solar system, right, on which we spin, is aligned with something called the axis of evil in the galaxy. Go watch the video. It's Dr. Becky on YouTube. Anyway, let's cut most of that.
Same kind of thing is just like the weirdness of how the moon and the earth are the right size to make eclipses on each other.
Right.
Just
Like, these weird coincidences. Like
that's just, it looks so intentional. Like, what? It's just like, you put all these things together and you're like, this poses some existentially disturbing questions. It's fun stuff.
I think it poses questions about how people find patterns in things.
Which is also existentially disturbing, in my opinion.
Right.
There's no way to collect all that information and not come away feeling like the ground's a little unstable. Like, either about the human psyche or about the world at large. One way or another, you're like, what?
Well, and the more I learn about both, the more I realize how little we understand about both.
True. So true. So true.
Thank you for listening to the Wheel of Time Spoilers podcast. Rate us in the Apple Podcast app or
support us on Patreon. Is that good enough?